In the center of the torrent of thousands of divine artifacts, the Tao light cluster floated quietly. Its glow was not intense, but compared to the surrounding torrents, it was incredibly dim, like fireflies against the full moon. Within the Tao light cluster, there was an axe, a ruler, and a mirror. The axe was bronze-colored, its surface covered with mottled marks, as if it had once split open the heavens. Its power boundless. The ruler was pitch black, with no other color. The deep blackness seemed to absorb all the light in the world, as though any brilliance in the heavens and earth would vanish once it touched the ruler. The mirror was the oldest kind of stone mirror, its surface rough and seemingly ordinary, yet it exuded an ancient aura, a mysterious feeling that surrounded it. Each of these items, in their own right, seemed incredibly powerful. The fluctuations they emitted far surpassed even those of the supreme divine artifacts, clearly indicating that they had reached the level of quasi-sacred objects. These were treasures that Chen had longed for, and obtaining even one would undoubtedly increase his battle power exponentially. Even the previous Jin Qingtian would be easily defeated under such power. Chen's eyes burned with desire as he stared at the quasi-sacred object. He licked his lips, and greed welled up within him. Facing such a readily available treasure, even the calmest of minds might falter. His gaze grew even hotter. He took a step forward, and his spiritual energy transformed into a large hand, breaking through the air, reaching straight for the quasi-sacred object. Since he had come this far, he wouldn't let any of them slip away. Whoosh! The spiritual hand tore through the air effortlessly, passing through the torrent of divine artifacts, and was about to seize the quasi-sacred object in front of him. However, just as Chen was about to touch the object, his eyes suddenly flashed. It seemed as though a moment of clarity returned to him. He then bit the tip of his tongue, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The bloodstain appeared at the corner of Chen's mouth. The spiritual hand froze in midair, and it did not touch the still, motionless quasi-sacred object. Chen slowly wiped the blood from his lips, his expression darkening slightly. Just as he was about to seize the object, the caution and resilience he had developed over the years kicked in, allowing him to forcibly suppress the greed rising within him. As his greed receded, Chen began to sense that something was amiss. Everything had gone smoothly. Even though he had previously wanted to claim the quasi-sacred object, he hadn't encountered any obstacles. Although the treasure beast had long been destroyed, Chen was not the type to believe that such powerful beings would leave no measures to protect their treasures. Rumor had it that the treasure beast was miserly when it came to treasures, so if he thought he could freely take the treasures here, he might end up regretting it. Moreover, Chen felt that the greed in his heart had risen too easily. This didn't seem to be his original intention, but rather something induced by the measures left in this place. These measures were likely set by the treasure beast. If he took the treasure without caution, it might lead to a futile effort, like drawing water with a basket. Chen stood still, his face showing a thoughtful expression. After a long pause, he took a deep breath and sat down cross-legged, slowly. Closing his eyes, he stopped trying to claim the treasure and instead decided to meditate, seeking to calm his heart and rid himself of the greed's influence. Chen sat in meditation with his eyes closed. His expression gradually softened. The greed that had once surfaced faded away, and his heart became as still as water. Time passed quietly. Eventually, Chen opened his eyes. His gaze was calm, like a still pond, with no ripples. The greed was entirely gone. With a calm heart, Chen looked once again at the torrent of divine artifacts. This time, his view was entirely different. The once dazzling torrent of divine artifacts was now slowly dissipating. As though it had been an illusion all along, Chen quietly watched the torrent fade away. With no sense of regret, the torrent vanished until it completely disappeared. When the torrent had vanished, the space was left with only the quasi-sacred object, still quietly floating. However, Chen continued to stand still, showing no signs of movement, his expression completely unchanged. This silence lasted for quite some time. Before the quasi-sacred object finally moved, the glow emanated from it, and the individual pieces slowly drew closer, eventually merging into one. Chen saw this scene, and his eyes finally showed a flicker of emotion. The so-called quasi-holy artifact from before was definitely not an illusion, but a real object. However, due to his choices, it had triggered the method left behind by the treasure beast, leading to the subsequent changes. Chen was also quite curious about this final transformation. As the quasi-holy artifact fused, the light twisted, and after a brief moment, it gradually faded. When the light dissipated, something else appeared. It was not an axe, ruler, or mirror like before, but a black sphere about the size of a palm. However, upon closer inspection, it became clear that the sphere resembled a black eye. The black eye floated in midair, exuding a mysterious aura that sent a chill down one's spine. Whoosh! The black eye slowly flew towards Chen and landed right in front of him. He hesitated for a moment before extending his hand to gently catch it. A cold sensation spread from his palm. Chen flicked his finger, and a drop of blood essence fell onto it, quickly dissolving into the sphere. At that moment, he sensed a connection had been established between the two. Clearly, the treasures here, after the fall of the treasure beast, had become ownerless. As long as one could obtain them, they would be able to form a connection. Once the link was established, Chen immediately felt ancient information surge into his mind. That it was the origin of the item in his hand. Chen closed his eyes to sense the information. After a moment, he opened his eyes, gazing intently at the black eye in his hand. This item was called the Annihilation Eye, and it was said to have been crafted by the treasure beast using its own eyeball as material. Countless rare and powerful heavenly treasures had been added during its forging. In some ways, it could be considered the treasure beast's life treasure. Had the treasure beast not perished midway, it would have likely refined it into a true holy artifact. Even so, the Annihilation Eye was the most powerful quasi-holy artifact among all of the treasure beast's creations. So that's how it is. Chen murmured as he processed the information in his mind. Suddenly, he understood if he had tried to take all the quasi-holy artifacts earlier, he would have gained nothing now. Everyone who came here had only one chance to choose. If they had casually taken one of those supreme divine artifacts in the beginning, their path would have ended there. Chen couldn't help but feel extremely fortunate. If he hadn't held back earlier, he would have been kicked out for taking a divine artifact. That would have been maddening. If I had taken one of the quasi-holy artifacts earlier, I might have gained it, but I wouldn't be able to get the Annihilation Eye. Chen sighed. To obtain the Annihilation Eye, one had to cast aside all greed. If he hadn't been cautious earlier, abandoning his desire at the last moment and focusing on calming his mind, he wouldn't have obtained the Annihilation Eye now. This treasure beast really is cunning. Chen shook his head. If it weren't for his good luck, he would have been tricked by the treasure beast this time. Thankfully, he had come out on top. Chen lifted the Annihilation Eye in his hand, a satisfied smile appearing on his face. Although this was a quasi-holy artifact, its potential far exceeded that of ordinary quasi-holy artifacts. If he had enough opportunities in the future, it might even become a true holy artifact. It is said that the Annihilation Eye can see through all worldly illusions and barriers. It can also condense the Annihilation divine light. Wherever the light passes, all things are extinguished. It is incomparable. Chen narrowed his eyes. He then focused his mind, and the Annihilation Eye transformed into a black and entered his body. That a dark light gathered at his forehead, and a black vertical eye, as dark as a black hole, slowly opened. From within the black vertical eye, dark light radiated. As the light passed, Chen immediately noticed the world around him change drastically. The space directly shattered, and he found himself facing the vast treasure lake. However, this time, the barrier of the treasure lake no longer hindered him. He easily pierced through the water and saw everything within the lake with perfect clarity. The enormous, indescribable skeletal remains came into view. It was the skeleton of the treasure beast. The spot where the skeleton rose above the lake. He saw the tiny figures of the 9 Nether, Han Shan, and the others. Then, his gaze shifted deeper into the lake. With a single glance, he pierced through to the lake's deepest point. The vast lake bed was riddled with deep ravines, resembling an abyss. Clearly, it was formed by the impact when the treasure beast fell many years ago. As Chen's gaze swept across the area, a sudden sense of unease surged within his heart. The Annihilation Eye pierced through all things. eventually focusing on the area where the treasure beast's skeletal remains had collapsed. Judging by the shape, it seemed to be the location of the beast's skull. Beneath the skull, at the bottom of the lake, there was a pitch-black giant pit, roughly a meter in diameter. The pit was so dark it sent a chill down one's spine. As though no light could reach it, a faint blood-red glow lingered, and the scent of that blood was eerily similar to that of the treasure beast itself. Did the treasure beast's essence blood flow into this? Mu Chen's heart trembled. The light of the Annihilation eye flared up as he tried to examine the mysterious black hole. However, the moment his vision reached it, a burst of bloodlight exploded, shattering his sight and forcing him to withdraw. Eye in the space around him. Mu Chen abruptly opened his eyes. The vertical eye on his forehead vanished, and his face was now filled with solemnity and shock. What exactly was that black hole at the bottom of the lake? What on earth is that? In the dark space, Mu Chen's face was full of confusion and shock. The black hole led to an unknown place, but why did the treasure beast's essence blood flow into it? Mu Chen pondered for a moment, but still had no answers. He could only shake his head helplessly. With his current strength, it was clearly impossible to peer into the situation inside the black hole. Since that was the case, there was no need to waste any more energy on it. The beast tomb was full of strange and unfathomable mysteries, with places that were difficult to explore. Let's just take the treasure and leave, Mu Chen muttered to himself. Without further hesitation, he focused his mind, and the dark space around him faded away. His perception quickly retraced its original path. At the surface of the lake, Mu Chen, seated atop a bone fragment, opened his eyes. His gaze had grown even deeper. He extended a finger to gently touch his forehead, where he could faintly sense the powerful fluctuations that still lingered. It was indeed the Annihilation eye. A smile that Mu Chen couldn't hold back slowly appeared on his face. After all the hardship, it hadn't been in vain. This quasi-holy artifact was finally in his hands. With this item, if he were to encounter Jin Qi again, dealing with him would be a piece of cake. Though, compared to the Star Suppression Tower, this power is still a bit weaker, Mu Chen sensed inwardly. But he wasn't disappointed. After all, the Star Suppression Tower was a true holy artifact, one level higher than the Annihilation Eye. Besides, that wasn't the goal of his current journey. Items of that caliber were beyond his current control. Even if he obtained one, it would be nothing more than an unattainable ideal. Moreover, while the Annihilation Eye was only a quasi-holy artifact, it was the treasure beast's life treasure. Its potential was immense. If he had the opportunity to cultivate it further, it might one day evolve into a true holy artifact. By then, its power would surpass that of the Star Suppression Tower. Mu Chen stood up from the skeletal remains and floated in midair. As his gaze swept around, he saw the others, Nether, Han Shan, and the rest, slowly opening their eyes. They had clearly finished their own searches. How did it go? Mu Chen approached them, asking with a smile. The three strong members of the Rhinoceros Demon Clan bitterly shook their heads, their faces full of embarrassment. We found some supreme divine artifacts, but after collecting them, our perception was forcefully kicked back. They clearly had the same experience as Mu Chen earlier. However, unlike Mu Chen, who had a strong will, they attempted to collect as many supreme divine artifacts as possible, but they were immediately interrupted after taking only one, halting their treasure hunt. Mu Chen secretly sighed in relief. He was glad he had restrained his greed earlier. Otherwise, he too would be regretting his decision while holding a supreme divine artifact. Each person only has one chance to collect a treasure here. Once you've taken something, no matter what it is, you lose the chance to choose again, Han Shan sighed, clearly understanding the rules now. The three members of the Rhinoceros Demon Clan had twisted expressions, clearly regretting their decisions. It seems you had quite the harvest, Han brother. Mu Chen noticed that Han Shan didn't seem disappointed and couldn't help but smile. Han Shan chuckled softly. With a clenched fist, a flash of black light appeared, and a black iron rod materialized in his hand. The rod was rough in texture, yet it was engraved with countless mysterious patterns. There was an unmistakable sense of immense weight emanating from it, as if it contained the power of numerous mountains. Mu Chen's gaze flickered upon seeing the black iron rod. This object didn't seem to have the distinctive energy fluctuations of a quasi-sacred artifact, but for some reason, he felt that its potential wasn't any weaker than a true quasi-sacred item. This is the Heaven-Shaking Staff. But it's not exactly a quasi-sacred artifact, Han Shan explained with a proud smile. It doesn't have overwhelming powers, but its one special trait is its terrifying weight. A single strike from it could instantly crush even a 7th grade supreme. The item was crude, but it suited him perfectly. The rhinoceros demon clan excelled in strength, and with this staff in his hands, he was more formidable than ever. In fact, its might even surpass that of a true quasi-sacred artifact. Not bad, Chen commented, impressed. Pure weight, when combined with spiritual energy, could unleash an overwhelming force. While it didn't have the miraculous powers of true divine items, its sheer weight was already on par with a quasi-sacred artifact. Chen then shifted his gaze to the trio, Nine Nether, Mo Feng, and Mo Ling. His eyes sparkled with anticipation, clearly hoping they would find something equally impressive. Nine Nether smiled faintly. With a wave of her jade hand, something Chen recognized appeared before her. It was a pitch-black ruler, its surface devoid of any color but black. The darkness was so deep that it seemed like, with a swipe of the ruler, it could erase all the light in the world. Is it really that? Chen thought to himself, surprised. This ruler was one of the 3 quasi-sacred artifacts he had encountered during his first visit. Though he had discarded it, it had ultimately found its way into Nine Nether's hands. Try hitting me with a punch, Nine Nether said, holding the black ruler and smiling mischievously. Chen nodded and threw a casual punch. Instantly, a massive fist of spiritual energy surged toward Nine Nether. She casually waved the black ruler, and dark light engulfed the punch. To his astonishment, the spiritual energy in the punch vanished nearly half its strength, and its light rapidly dimmed. By the time it reached Nine Nether, the attack had lost almost all of its power. Unable to break through her spiritual defenses, Chen was slightly taken aback. Although his punch was thrown casually, it was enough to severely injure an ordinary 7th grade supreme. Yet, with the swipe of Nine Nether's ruler, its power had been almost halved. This is the Dark Divine Ruler. It contains dark divine light and has devouring power. Any spiritual energy attack will have part of its power devoured. If used to its fullest, nothing can get close, Nine Nether explained. Chen was inwardly amazed. The Dark Divine Ruler was indeed extraordinary. With it as a defense, any attack would be weakened. The balance of power would shift in her favor in combat, greatly increasing her odds of victory. With this in her possession, even Jin Chi Tian from before would struggle to match Nine Nether. Indeed, quasi-sacred artifacts were incredibly powerful. Despite his admiration for the Dark Divine Ruler, Chen didn't regret his earlier choice. The Annihilation Eye he had obtained was stronger than the ruler, and its potential was far greater. After all, the Annihilation Eye was a life treasure crafted by the ancient treasure beast. After Nine Nether retrieved the ruler, Mo Feng and Mo Ling also summoned their items. A long spear and a bell appeared in their hands. The spear had a dark golden color and an ancient design. Its tip was blunt, lacking sharpness, but there was a faint cold light emanating from its rough head that sent a chill down one's spine. In Mo Ling's hands, the bell was a fiery red, and the sound it made seemed to summon a fiery sea. When it rang, it felt like the entire world would be engulfed in a destructive blaze. Although the items in Mo Feng and Mo Ling's hands didn't seem to match the Dark Divine Ruler in terms of power, they were clearly genuine quasi-sacred artifacts. The two were evidently satisfied with their gains. Even Mo Feng, whose expression was usually stern, couldn't help but show a faint smile. It seemed that this expedition to the ancient treasure beast had been a resounding success for everyone. And what about you? Nine Nether asked, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. She knew well that despite the tests left behind by the ancient treasure beast, she couldn't believe that Chen would return empty-handed. The others also looked at Chen with curiosity. Chen smiled, and a dark light surged from his forehead. The Annihilation Eye slowly appeared, and as the dark light shone, everyone felt a chill in their hearts, as if that light had pierced through everything. The dark light surged and quickly dissipated, but the mysterious aura it left behind still caused a shiver in everyone. Han Shan clicked his tongue and sighed. Looks like the best treasures of the treasure beast have already been claimed by Brother Mu. Although he couldn't identify the Annihilation Eye, Han Shan could sense the power of that mysterious eye. He had an instinctive feeling that if that eye were to attack, even if he didn't die on the spot, he would likely suffer severe injuries. Chen gave a non-committal smile and didn't elaborate on the Annihilation Eye's powers. After all, keeping some abilities secret was necessary. The treasure beast's treasures are taken, so are you planning to search for the Undying Bird's clues next? Han Shan asked. Looking at Chen and Nine Nether, he knew that Chen's main goal in coming to the beast's tomb was to search for the Undying Bird, with the treasure beast just a secondary objective. Chen paused for a moment before replying. I plan to stay here and cultivate for a while to push my spiritual power to the peak of the 6th grade supreme. Treasure Lake was one of the few cultivation spots in the beast tomb. It wasn't disturbed by beast spirits or death chi, and the spiritual energy here was rich, making it a perfect place for seclusion. The beast tomb was filled with dangers, and Chen always had a feeling that searching for the undying bird would be especially perilous. Therefore, he needed to push his strength to its peak. Moreover, now that he had obtained the Annihilation Eye, this was the perfect time to use its ability to probe the beast tomb and search for any traces of the undying bird. Nine Nether and Mo Foam exchanged a glance and nodded in agreement, clearly showing their support. Hanshan smiled and said, "In that case, we'll stay as well. Perhaps we can lend a hand when the time comes." Chen had already helped them significantly, and if he took the treasure and left immediately, it would be quite impolite. Chen smiled and nodded, then exhaled lightly, his gaze turning toward the deeper parts of the beast tomb. He could faintly sense that there were indeed traces of the undying bird here, but the dangers would likely be far greater than anything they had encountered so far. Therefore, he needed to raise his spiritual power to the peak of the 6th grade supreme as quickly as possible. If the opportunity arose, he might even attempt to break through to the 7th grade supreme. Once both his physical strength and spiritual cultivation reached the 7th grade supreme, he would have the power to face an 8th grade supreme head-on. On the vast, crystal-clear lake, a figure sat quietly in meditation. He floated above the lake, like a piece of driftwood, allowing the ripples to pass beneath him. Yet his form remained perfectly still. This figure was, of course, Chen, who had chosen to meditate and cultivate in seclusion at Treasure Lake. The spiritual energy here was abundant, and the atmosphere was peaceful and undisturbed by the death chi of the beast tomb, making it an ideal place for seclusion. Around the lake, Nine Nether, Mo Foam, and the others were also in the midst of their cultivation. They had just obtained a quasi-sane artifact, and were taking the time to nurture it with their spiritual energy, so they could use it freely and enhance their combat strength. They had supported Chen's idea of temporary seclusion from the very beginning. While in meditation, Chen opened his eyes. His black pupils resembled a deep well, calm and undisturbed. He thought for a moment, then took out a jade vial. With a flick of his finger, a torrent of spiritual liquid rushed out from the vial, and instantly, the spiritual energy in the area surged, surrounding Chen like a mist. This torrent was, of course, made up of countless supreme spiritual liquids. For cultivators at the supreme stage, supreme spiritual liquid was an essential resource. Only by having enough of it could one achieve the best results in their cultivation. The torrent of supreme spiritual liquid circled around Chen, and looking at it roughly, there were probably no less than 1,000,000 droplets. Chen slightly closed his eyes, parted his lips, and gently inhaled. Immediately, the spiritual liquid formed into a dragon-shaped stream, which rushed into his mouth, continuously flowing into him. Chen's body gleamed with brilliant spiritual light. He circulated his cultivation method, refining all the supreme spiritual liquid that flowed into his body. Finally, he infused it into the supreme sea, advancing his spiritual power. Thus, time quietly passed as Chen absorbed the supreme spiritual liquid in a manner that could only be described as devouring it. During this period of cultivation, time slipped away like sand, and before he knew it, nearly 10 days had passed. In those 10 days, Chen never rested, constantly absorbing the supreme spiritual liquid. In just 10 days, he consumed a staggering 5 million units of supreme spiritual liquid, nearly half of what he had obtained on this journey. Though the consumption was massive, Chen did make progress. His spiritual power firmly reached the peak of the 6th grade supreme, and he was now only a step away from breaking into the 7th grade supreme. However, what slightly disappointed him was that the sensation of breaking through to the 7th grade supreme hadn't appeared. It seemed that to reach the 7th grade supreme in a short time, he would need to find another method. Moreover, during these 10 days of cultivation, Chen also utilized the power of the Annihilation Eye to constantly probe the vast beast tomb, hoping to find any trace of the undying bird. But after multiple attempts, he was somewhat disappointed. Despite his repeated searches, he hadn't found the desired results. The beast tomb was simply too vast, with death energy spreading throughout. blocking all perception. Even the annihilation I could only vaguely sense, making it difficult to clearly detect anything. Nevertheless, these repeated failures clearly wouldn't cause Mu Chen to give up. He had made up his mind when entering the Divine Beast Plains. He must perfect the 9 Nether Bloodline. These failures could not shake his resolve. Above the vast lake, in a meditative state, Mu Chen opened his eyes. The overwhelming flow of supreme spiritual liquid surrounding him turned into the last wisp of spiritual energy smoke. Entering his breath. A sharp gleam flashed in his black eyes. His body moved, and he appeared high in the sky. A black light appeared on his forehead, and a vertical eye slowly opened, emitting an aura of mystery. The black light surged, seemingly piercing through endless space, illuminating everything within 1,000 miles into his Mu Chen activated the power of the Annihilation Eye once again, trying to detect any traces of the undying bird in the beast tomb. The black light pierced through space, and the areas saturated with death energy were meticulously probed. However, it was clear that the Annihilation Eye had its limits. The farther the area, the more indistinct the readings became. During the past 10 days, Mu Chen had essentially explored the nearby areas, so now his search was gradually moving deeper into the beast tomb. The death energy in those regions was far too intense. Even with the Annihilation Eye, probing them remained challenging. After several hours of searching, Mu Chen was somewhat disappointed to find that he still hadn't discovered any clues regarding the undying bird. His brows furrowed tightly. He hadn't anticipated how difficult it would be to uncover any traces of the undying bird, and as for the undying flame that Han Shan had mentioned, he still hadn't seen even the slightest flicker of flame. If he didn't trust Han Shan's character so much, he might have begun to wonder if that guy was just making things up. As his search continued, Mu Chen felt a subtle pain in his forehead. It was a reaction from using the Annihilation Eye for too long. This indicated that the Annihilation Eye could no longer be sustained. Sensing the discomfort, Mu Chen helplessly shook his head and prepared to withdraw. However, just as that thought crossed his mind, his gaze suddenly sharpened. A black light flickered on his forehead, focusing on a specific area deep within the beast tomb. But where the black light shone, all that was reflected was an impenetrable darkness. If before Mu Chen could still observe vague shapes, now it was as if something was obscuring his vision entirely. This place is a bit strange. Mu Chen pondered for a moment and immediately activated the Annihilation Eye again. The black light in his eyes concentrated as he tried to forcefully pierce through the darkness, attempting a brief glimpse. But as the black light pierced through the space, trying to penetrate the darkness, the very fabric of the space seemed to tremble. Disturbing, almost violent roars echoed, and a terrifying wave of flames surged forth, burning through the air. In an instant, these waves of power scattered the Annihilation Eye's probing energy. Boom! Mu Chen's body jolted, and a trace of fresh blood seeped from the Annihilation Eye in the center of his brow. Clearly, it had been affected by some backlash. His face grew extremely solemn. That dark region was so terrifying that even a mere glance from the Annihilation Eye had triggered such a backlash. Fortunately, he hadn't been reckless enough to fully unleash its power, or else the Annihilation Eye itself might have been severely injured. What exactly is in that area? Mu Chen rubbed his brow, his expression tense. Areas like that were always unusual. It was likely that an extremely powerful being had once fallen there, causing the land to be guarded by its lingering aura. However, after more than 10 days of exploring the beast tomb, this was the first time he encountered such a terrifying backlash. Clearly, there was something horrifying in that place. The fire earlier, it feels somewhat familiar. Could it be the undying flame? Mu Chen muttered to himself. When the Annihilation Eye had been affected by the backlash earlier, he seemed to have caught a glimpse of some flames. Could they have been the undying flames? But the terrifying roar seemed to belong to something other than the undying bird. That region was truly mysterious and eerie. Mu Chen's eyes flickered. Once the Annihilation Eye in his brow began to recover, he once again activated his spiritual sense. This time, however, he didn't recklessly attempt to peer into the dark area. Instead, he focused on the nearby regions. These places were filled with dreadful death energy. He could vaguely detect some terrifying fluctuations in the death energy, likely emanating from extremely powerful beast spirits. That must be the depths of the beast tomb. No wonder so many powerful beast spirits are guarding it, Mu Chen murmured. After a rough scan, it was clear that the area was surrounded by a vast number of beast spirits, making it almost impossible to enter. Just as Mu Chen was scanning that region, he suddenly let out a soft exclamation. Black light pierced through the space, and in the distance, far from the dark area, a group of figures was swiftly moving past, judging by their direction. They were clearly heading towards the dark region. What surprised Mu Chen the most was that among them were some familiar figures. Two of them, a man and a woman, were none other than Qi Hongwu and Bai Bin, whom he had encountered at the previous trading post. People from the Phoenix clan? Mu Chen's eyes flashed. The figures were surrounded by powerful spiritual energy fluctuations. Clearly, they were all members of the Phoenix clan. Mu Chen's gaze shifted to the leader at the front of the group. The figure was wearing a blue robe. Their expression indifferent. A chilling aura surrounded them, and wherever they passed, the air seemed to freeze into ice. Mu Chen stared at the person, feeling a sharp prickling sensation all over his body. His flesh instinctively felt threatened. At that moment, as Mu Chen was spying on the man in the blue robe, the figure suddenly halted. He raised his head sharply and cast a cold, piercing gaze into the void, as if sensing Mu Chen's observation. Humph. The figure seemed to sneer, and with a swift motion, he clenched his hand. A feather fan appeared in his grip, ice blue in color, resembling a phoenix feather. White flames were burning on it, but unlike normal flames, these exuded an unsettling coldness instead of heat. He brandished the feather fan at the void, and the white flames surged forth, sweeping across the air. The space instantly froze, turning into a crystal of ice that spread layer by layer. Even the space itself was completely frozen. As the space froze, the black light from Mu Chen's annihilation was also eroded by the cold, gradually dissipating. Above Treasure Lake, Mu Chen opened his eyes, and the annihilation eye in his brow slowly faded. However, an unusual light flickered in his black pupils as he gazed in the direction of the Phoenix clan's group. That man in the blue robe was likely from the Phoenix clan as well, but why were they all heading towards that dark region? The white feather fan seemed to be a quasi-sacred artifact. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to block the annihilation eyes probing so effectively. Something strange. Mu Chen's eyes narrowed, his thoughts racing. A sense of curiosity about the mysterious area began to grow within him. The Phoenix clan was always driven by profit, and their standards were extremely high. Ordinary items would never catch their attention. The fact that they were moving so hastily meant that something extraordinary must be there. And this so-called extraordinary object, could it possibly be the undying bird? Mu Chen's figure slowly descended above Treasure Lake, and at that moment, Nine Nether, Emophone, and the others also arrived, their gazes inquisitive. They had clearly noticed the sudden change in Mu Chen earlier and the trace of blood still lingering on his brow. Brother Mu, have you found anything? Han Shan asked awkwardly. Over the past 10 days, Mu Chen had repeatedly probed the area without any success, which left Han Shan feeling a bit embarrassed. After all, he had confidently assured everyone that there would be clues about the undying bird in this beast tomb. Mu Chen smiled at his question and gave a slight nod. His reaction immediately lifted the spirits of Nine Nether and the others. After all, this was the first time in 10 days that they had seen him nod in affirmation. Seeing their anticipation, Mu Chen did not keep them in suspense. He directly shared everything he had uncovered about the mysterious region and the arrival of the Phoenix clan. The Phoenix clan is here as well? Nine Nether's delicate face showed a trace of surprise. Her slender brows furrowed slightly as she mused. Those people have extremely high standards. For them to act with such urgency, it must be something extraordinary. Her beautiful eyes flickered with thought. The ancient undying bird was, in fact, a branch of the Phoenix clan, though incredibly rare or rarer even than the true phoenixes within the clan. If there were indeed clues about the undying bird, it was no surprise that the Phoenix clan would be drawn to them like moths to a flame. If they could obtain the undying bird's inheritance blood, it would grant a tremendous evolution and enhancement to their bloodline. However, anything involving the Phoenix clan was bound to become complicated. With their arrogance, sharing a portion of the spoils with others would not be an easy task. In terms of difficulty, the Heavenly Wolf clan and the Golden Lion clan they had dealt with earlier couldn't even compare. If the Phoenix clan is heading toward the area Brother Mu discovered, then that place is definitely not ordinary. Han Shan added. At this point, he suddenly paused, as if something had come to mind. Now that I think about it, we do have some intelligence of our own. Oh. Mu Chen looked at Han Shan with surprise. What else was this guy hiding? Seeing Mu Chen's gaze, Han Shan quickly shook his head. It's not that I was deliberately keeping it a secret. While you were cultivating, I sent people out to gather information. Although they didn't find any clues about the undying bird, they did uncover something else. Something else. Over the past 10 days, the number of teams entering the beast tomb has suddenly increased. Among them are quite a few of the top divine beast clans, Han Shan said gravely. The Kuenping clan, the Nine-Colored Peacock clan, the Heavenly Crane clan, the Transcendent Ape clan. With each name Han Shan uttered, Mu Chen's eyebrows twitched. These were all legendary names in the Great Thousand Worlds. Colossal powers that dominated vast territories. They were among the most elite of the divine beast clans, possessing unfathomable heritage and strength. After his initial shock, Mu Chen's expression grew serious. If it had been just one or two top-tier divine beast clans entering the beast tomb, it could have been a coincidence. But for so many to appear simultaneously, there had to be some underlying reason. There must be something within the beast tomb drawing them here, Mo Feng said sharply. Otherwise, these divine beast clans wouldn't risk entering such a perilous place. Nine Nether nodded slightly, then suddenly turned her gaze toward Mu Chen. He also sensed something and narrowed his eyes. Could they all be heading for that mysterious region? Although he had no idea what lay within that area, the fact that it had attracted the Phoenix clan meant it was anything but ordinary. If that was the case, it was highly likely that other top-tier divine beast clans had also been drawn to it. Han Shan nodded in agreement. There was indeed a strong possibility that these events were connected. What do you plan to do? Mo Feng asked, looking at Mu Chen. Nine Nether also gazed at him. Along this journey, as Mu Chen continuously demonstrated his formidable strength and reliability, he had unconsciously taken the role of the group's decision-maker, replacing her. Mu Chen remained silent for a moment. He still didn't know what exactly lay within that mysterious region, but based on his previous vague sensing, the dangers there were far beyond anything they had encountered thus far. And if the top divine beast clans were all converging there, then once the competition broke out, it would undoubtedly be ruthless and brutal. Those lacking strength might not even leave behind a trace of their existence. This kind of perilous land would normally be avoided at all costs. But what if it held clues about the undying bird? Despite the immense gains from entering the divine beast plains, the most crucial issue remained unresolved, helping Nine Nether obtain the Phoenix blood essence and awaken her perfect bloodline. If this was not accomplished, no matter how many quasi-sacred artifacts Mu Chen acquired, he would not find peace.so. Even if that region was filled with danger, he had to take the risk. No matter what lies in that area, I will not let the chance slip by. If there is even the slightest possibility of finding a trace of the undying bird, I must try. Mu Chen looked at the group, his voice calm yet unwavering. A ripple flickered through Nine Nether's beautiful eyes. Though she said nothing, a warmth quietly spread through her heart. Mo Feng nodded at Mu Chen's words, while Mo Ling showed no objections. Seeing this, Mu Chen turned to Han Shan with a smile. Brother Han, if you have other matters to attend to, we can part ways here. He was not forcing Han Shan to accompany them. After all, the enemies they might face ahead could very well be from the strongest divine beast races, far more formidable than Jin Chi Tian and his group. However, Han Shan's expression hardened at Mu Chen's words. Brother Mu, you make it sound like we're not friends. If not for you, we wouldn't have even stepped into Treasure Lake, let alone obtained any treasures. Now that you have an important task, of course, we'll do everything we can to help. Mu Chen was briefly stunned before clasping his fist with a smile. Then I must thank you. Han Shan, already a 7th grade supreme, had also acquired the heaven-shaking staff. With his enhanced battle prowess, he would not even fear someone like Jin Chi Tian, who stood at the peak of the 7th grade supreme, with him on their side. Their group's strength would rise significantly. However, by choosing to follow them, Han Shan and his team would inevitably clash with some of the strongest divine beast races, which could put them under immense pressure. Mu Chen hadn't expected Han Shan to make such a decision. Since that's the case, let's set off immediately for the depths of the beast tomb. Along the way, if we encounter other groups, we can gather intelligence. If we confirm that the mysterious region holds clues about the undying bird, we'll head straight there. Otherwise, we'll abandon it and look for other leads, Mu Chen said with a smile. No matter what treasures lay hidden in that mysterious region, to Mu Chen, the only thing that truly mattered was helping Nine Nether obtain the Phoenix blood essence and her perfect bloodline. Everything else could wait. Han Shan nodded in agreement. Avoiding direct conflict with the top divine beast clans would be ideal. After all, even a powerhouse like Jin Chi Tian would tread cautiously when facing the young elites of those races. Seeing that no one objected, Mu Chen did not hesitate any longer. He gazed into the depths of the beast tomb before waving his hand. His figure transformed into a streak of light, shooting forward. Behind him, Nine Nether and the others followed swiftly, leaving behind the vast and tranquil treasure lake. Under Mu Chen's lead, they moved directly toward the mysterious region deep within the beast tomb. Thanks to the insights he had gleaned with the Annihilation Eye over the past 10 days, their journey was surprisingly smooth. They hardly encountered any beast spirit hordes along the way. In less than 2 days. They were already nearing the beast tomb's core. On the second day of their journey, they encountered another group heading in the same direction. Through them, Mu Chen's group obtained some of the information they sought, though the process involved a fair share of force. In the divine beast planes, power reigned supreme. As long as one demonstrated enough strength, even the strongest divine beast clans would show respect. And the information they uncovered finally revealed the origins of that mysterious region. It was said that in the ancient era, when the divine beast planes shattered, the greatest powerhouses of this land clashed with the kings of the extraterritorial clan. Most of these supreme beings had fallen in the depths of the beast tomb. The powerful warriors of the extraterritorial clan perished. Yet their evil aura continued to spread, attempting to corrupt the bones of numerous supreme divine beasts. As a result, the lingering wills of these supreme divine beasts gradually merged, settling deep within the beast tomb, where they guarded the remains, while simultaneously suppressing the kings of the extraterritorial clan. The place, where the remains of many supreme divine beasts were buried, is known as the Divine Tomb Garden.